news. You're listening to your Morning Monarchy. I am James Evan Pilato of MediaMonarchy.com. Do you know that the second Wednesday of every month, we've got an exclusive segment called the Mounsey Minute? Our buddy Gavin Mounsey in the Great White North has been with us now for 19 months, giving you exclusive, great new ways to eat better. As I always link up for you our previous Mounsey Minute posts on Media Monarchy, and of course, a link to Recipes for Reciprocity, the cookbook, and it's really more than a cookbook, by our buddy Gavin Mounsey, as we bring you episode 19. And again, you guys, when Casabot was serving up that Caesar salad last night, I was like, ooh, there's croutons in the Mounsey Minute too. Garden Fresh Gazpacho, Mounsey Minute 19 on Media Monarchy.
This is Gavin Mounsey for Media Monarchy. I'm author of Recipes for Reciprocity, the regenerative way from seed to table, and this is the Mounsey Minute. This month we're going to be talking about one of my favorite summer soups, which is Gazpacho. This allows me to use up the abundance of cucumbers, tomatoes, and peppers that are flowing out of the garden and combine them into a hydrating, refreshing, and nourishing meal. Gazpacho is actually one of the recipes I had in the original final draft of my book, but I ended up having to cut it out due to printing budget restraints, so I'm grateful to be able to revive it here and share it with all of you guys. My recipe is far from traditional. I'll share a few variations I did with different toppings. Basically, what I like to do with mine is instead of puree it like a lot of people do, where you end up with the kind of a pale red mush, I like to first make the pureed version of the soup, which combines all the flavors together into a soup texture, and then I add a lot of diced ingredients. So the end result for my soup is actually more like the consistency of a salad, but if you prefer more of a liquidy consistency, you can always blend the entire thing. Either way, it's going to be amazingly nourishing and refreshing. One of the things I did when I was prepping to make the soup is that while I happened to be having a barbecue and I was grilling some food up for dinner, I figured, you know what, I got some vegetables I can grill on the side and some mangoes. I can add a nice smoky flair to this gazpacho I'm going to make the next day. So I threw some halved mangoes on there, grilled them up, gave them that smoky flavor and that charred look, and I threw some poblano peppers on there, grilled those up too, and then keep those in the fridge until the next day when I was going to make the gazpacho, and that way I could add a nice smoky flavor and those black flecks from the grill, and it turned out beautifully. As a nod to the ancient Roman roots of the recipe, I decided to include some sourdough, so I made a homemade sourdough loaf, and then I cut it up into cubes, drizzled some olive oil on there, put some Italian herbs, put some Swiss cheese, baked it in the oven until I got some nice crispy croutons, and then added those on the finished soup. It added a really nice contrast of the senses when you have this ice cold soup with all these different textures and then these crunchy croutons with herbs and a savory flavor. So one version of the soup, I included just the croutons and some chopped up chives, which is another thing that was enjoyed by the Romans and the Greeks, as well as an optional adding of borage flowers and yarrow flowers. In ancient Roman times, it was thought that if you added borage flowers to your wine, it would make you happy. And it turns out that there are compounds within the borage flowers that actually alter your brain chemistry and increase your mood to be in a positive state. So borage has medicinal properties, and it also tastes like cucumber. So I diced up some of the leaves of the borage, added that to the soup, as well as adding the flowers as a garnish. Yarrow is also important in Roman culture, where it was known as the military herb because it was used to stop bleeding on the battlefield. Well, it also has a nice, rich kind of rosemary-esque flavor. So while it is bitter just to eat it on its own, I found that adding a little bit of the blossoms to a sweet soup like gazpacho added a nice contrast, and of course the color looked really great too. And then the second variation for the soup, I leaned more into the New World ingredients as opposed to the Roman ingredients, and I added some fire-roasted poblano peppers and mangoes. That was really amazing because the poblano peppers added a little bit of spice and that lovely smoky flavor, and the mangoes, the sweetness contrasted the other peppers that I put in there, which is an amazing finish. Now for a fun flashback that blends well with this recipe, check out Mounsey Minute episode 6 for a recipe on fire-roasted fermented hot sauce. That's a beautiful topping to this soup as well. So you can make this soup pretty much by blending about 75% of the ingredients and then cubing up a bunch of the other ones to add as a topping if you want some variation in color and texture, or you can puree the majority of it and just add garnishes at the end. And another option you can do, which I've experimented with, is you can actually make a fermented version of this soup. So I used some of my fermented ramps that I had from the spring, which were still in the fridge in their fermented form, and added a little bit of that to inoculate the soup, kept it in a jar for 2 days at room temperature, and I actually had a probiotic version of this soup, which was amazing. Well, I hope this inspires you to try some gazpacho if you've never tried it before. It doesn't have to be homegrown. You can get some farmer's market goods and throw it in the blender. It's really refreshing and just offers a great spectrum of flavors. You can check out the full recipe on Substack for all the different variations and pictures to inspire you to create your own. Happy gazpacho making, everyone.
Ain't nothing in the world that I like better than bacon and lettuce and homegrown tomatoes. Up in the morning, out in the garden, get you a ripe one, don't get a hard one. Plant them in the spring, eat them in the summer. All winter without them's a culinary bummer. I forget all about the sweating and digging every time I go out and pick me a bit. Homegrown tomatoes, homegrown tomatoes. What'd life be without homegrown tomatoes? Only two things that money can't buy, and that's true love and homegrown tomatoes. Well, you can go out to eat, and that's for sure, but it's nothing a homegrown tomato won't cure. Put them in a salad, put them in a stew. You can make your very own tomato juice. You can eat them with eggs, you can eat them with gravy. Eat them with beans, pinto or navy. Put them on the side, put them in the middle. Put a homegrown tomato on a hot cake griddle. Homegrown tomatoes, homegrown tomatoes. What'd life be without homegrown tomatoes? Only two things that money can't buy, and that's true love and homegrown tomatoes. Change this life I lead, well, I'd be Johnny Tomato Seed, 'cause I know what this country needs. It's homegrown tomatoes in every yard you see. When I die, don't bury me in a box in a cemetery. Out in the garden, be much better, and I could be pushing up homegrown tomatoes. Homegrown tomatoes, homegrown tomatoes. What'd life be without homegrown tomatoes? Only two things that money can't buy, and that's true love and homegrown tomatoes. Homegrown tomatoes. What'd life be without homegrown tomatoes? Only two things that money can't buy, and that's true love and homegrown tomatoes.
Guy Clark on Media Monarchy. Homegrown tomatoes from Better Days, the fifth studio album by Texas singer-songwriter and favorite of Evan Dando, Guy Clark. Now remember, I think I told you, I showed you a picture when I was hanging out with my drug buddy Evan Dando last year. He was like, "You want this painting?" He had a painting on a small canvas of Guy Clark lyrics. Better Days, the fifth studio album by Texas singer-songwriter Guy Clark, released in '83 on Warner. The LP, produced by Rodney Crowell, who has brand new music coming up today on Pump Up the Volume, contained one hit single, Homegrown Tomatoes, which reached number 42 on the U.S. Billboard country charts. It was later covered by John Diefendorfer in '88 for his LP Higher Ground. That's John Denver. They know in the chat, gonna make my husband listen to this on repeat while we're canning tomatoes. That sounds good, Alpacamaska. And some of Gavin's favorite lyrics from that song, only two things that money can't buy, and that's true love and homegrown tomatoes. Gavin Mounsey also said to us, "It was a blast to experiment with, and I tried adding some as a condiment on a chicken wrap the next day, and that was awesome too. It is a versatile and refreshing recipe for sure. Hope you'll try making some and let Gavin know how it goes." And Jesser knew. Jesser in the chat typed, "Not pureed gazpacho," and about 5 seconds later, Gavin said, "And don't puree it and make it that mush." I pinned this new Mounsey Minute to the broadcast chat, so you can find that if you have some troubles. And, of course, you can find it right at MediaMonarchy.com. We have borage seeds, Castbot notes. Is it too late to plant them? Our first frost probably won't come until about October. And I will include a link to borage. Incognigra says the flowers, which you can see beautifully on your cover art for this Morning Monarchy episode, said the flowers taste just like cucumbers. Wild Type used to sell borage and other edible flowers to chefs at a fine dining French restaurant. It was one of her biggest cha-chings. And I used to serve gazpacho a lot at my last restaurant job in the early 2000s at the Blue Moon Cafe in Shepherdstown. R.I.P. Charmaine. God,